We're going to start a new project today, another one that is mostly just for play. So it doesn't really have a lot of utility to it, but trying to learn some of the tools that we have available to us in C#. So I'm going to create a new project in Visual Studio 2022. I'm making a console app in C#. Make sure that you've got the correct language there and the correct type console application in C#. You know what? I just noticed I can pin these. I'm going to pin those two. Use those for my two classes. Okay. This one is going to be called Formatted Output. Formatted Output. Make sure that you're saving it in a place that you can find it. Making sure that checkbox for the do not use top level statements is selected. Okay, so this project really just all about what can we do with this console.WriteLine? What can we do in order to make it a little bit more user-friendly? Rather than having to construct strings before we display them, can we construct those strings with the WriteLine utility, and what options do we have to make that look a little bit better? All right. So follow along, stop me if you get a little behind or if you have questions on something that we're doing. A lot of it's going to be fairly basic. It's just going to be little variations so that we can see kind of the differences in some of those options for output. So I'm going to start with a string name, and I've got to remember this is C#, not Visual Basic. I almost wrote dim for the Visual Basic, but no, this is C#. So string, I could even do this str name, give it a little bit better of a variable name. I'll put my name in there, and that with a semicolon. Just trying to get a couple of different variable types. Let's get an integer. I'll throw my age, not in quotes because I know what I'm doing. 35, and then we'll do a double. My salary, $27,522 because I got a PhD that one time, so they gave me a raise. All right. So we've got a string, an integer, and a double. Okay, anyway, we've got some different numbers in there, some different things that we can play with. I'm going to put a little title line here. So in a lot of our console programs, we'll kind of put a title at the top, and we can look at a little bit later how we might be able to pad that. In fact, I think, we're going to do that a little bit later. A little bit later, we're going to work on padding, but for right now, let's just go ahead and say formatted output demo and a new line character. Okay. Now realize that because we've got a WriteLine here, and because we've got the WriteLine, it's going to give us a new line anyway. So this new line character is actually giving us like an extra blank line. So pay attention to that when we actually run this program to see what that output actually looks like. Okay. First thing we're going to look at is basic placeholders. Okay, we've already done this actually, but just want to point them out. Basic placeholders. When we do a console.WriteLine, in quotes, write a little string here, hello, and then I'm going to do a curly brace and a number. This is a little different than we did last time. Hello, blank. You are, curly brace, 1 years old. And before I close the paren, I'm going to put a comma. Okay? And you'll notice as I put that comma in, it's looking for something more, and it tells us arg0 is what it's looking for. It's looking for some sort of an object. This represents whatever we're putting inside of our string. So let's go ahead and put name, str name, and my int age. And then it's telling me, hey, do you want to finish this up with a close paren and a semicolon because I've got enough parameters. Okay? So this is a way of constructing a string with a placeholder. This placeholder here in curly braces says there's got to be something later that I want to replace with this. I may not know what it is. I may want to change what it is. Then I use these variables to give a value for these placeholders. Now, what did we do last time? We did something a little bit different to do the same thing. But how did we get text like that instead of doing a curly brace 0? Does anybody remember what we did to get a variable to show up in our string? Okay, so we can concatenate strings. Something like this. All right, I'm just going to shorten this one. This is string concatenation. Hope I spelled that right, concatenation. Okay. There's one other way that we did this. The other thing that we did was put a $sign at the beginning, and then we can put the name of the variable straight inside of the curly braces. Little different, but very similar. Okay. This is called string interpolation, by the way. String interpolation. Okay. Which way is better? 0 and 1 with a list of things later, or typing out the names here? What would be a use, or what would the circumstances be that would make you say, I'd really rather have this? Okay, I know that I want to have these things. I don't know what they're called yet. I'll wait until I have the variables and then I can throw them on at the end. Maybe. Yeah, a lot less typing here. Okay, so let me give you one scenario where you would really prefer this over this. If you've got a really long variable name and you're going to use it in multiple places in the string. Okay, this we're only using, we've got 2 objects that we're referencing once each. What if I was referencing object 0 multiple times in my string and the string name or the variable name was pretty long? That'd be kind of annoying, right? Okay, so from an ease of use, maybe this one's easier to type out if we have multiple placeholders. Okay, this one is a lot easier, as Harley was saying. It's more intuitive. I know which variables I'm replacing. If I've got a lot of variables that I'm trying to put placeholders in for, trying to figure out, wait, is this the 7th or the 9th placeholder object, or the 13th or the 20th? That could get rather absurd rather quickly. Okay? And as I say that, I'm actually not sure if there's a limitation as to how many you can have there. I don't think there is, because we have a colon. Interesting, yeah. Not entirely sure, but 2 different ways to do this. Remember, this is the piece that you need to know. If there is not a $sign at the beginning, you're going to use placeholders and you're going to list the objects afterwards. If you're going to use variable names, you need a $ at the beginning. Now, this is similar to something like bash, where we're saying the value of these things inside of our string. Yeah, well, so 0 and 1 are placeholders that reference 0 and 1. So I could put, like after this, okay, something like that. And this would say str name again. Notice I don't have to add another object because I'm referencing the same object a second time. Does that make sense? Okay. Just going to run that so you guys can see it. Okay. So we've got our formatted output demo. There's our extra line from the new line character. You'll notice that it's replacing $0. Let's try to get both of these things. There it is. So we're replacing this 0 said $0. My mind's back in bash again. We're replacing 0 with Stephen. We're replacing 1 with 35. We're replacing 0 with Stephen again, okay? Same thing, we can in fact use that concatenation, but this I would say is the most cumbersome. Okay? Also, if you do this in a programming interview or with other professional coders, they'll laugh at you a little bit. Okay? This is not the way we want to do it. We really would much rather use either placeholders like this or like that. String interpolation looks exactly the same. We're just specifying what those are. Okay. Now, let's get a little bit more fancy, shall we? All right. So after our basic placeholders, let's talk about formatting numbers. Formatting numbers. Another console.write line. And in this one, I'm going to say your salary, lowercase s, salary is, and I'm going to use this placeholder again, but I'm going to change it a little bit. So first object being 0, I'm going to put a colon here. I'm going to use a C, capital C, after the colon. Anybody have a guess as to what the C stands for? Currency. This would make sense given that our salary is probably dollars and cents, kind of like that. Okay, so this will be our salary. Let's see what this looks like. Run that real quick. And we do, in fact, get it formatted as though it is money. That's pretty neat. Now, of course, this only works for US currency. But we get our commas in our thousand spot. We get a decimal. We get a dollar sign at the beginning. And we didn't have to do any of that. And that's kind of nice, having that little formatting character there. Are there other formatting characters? Other formatting characters. Let's look at a few. One of these days, I'm going to organize these in alphabetical order. But I don't have them in alphabetical order right now. Let's do numbers next. So console.write line. Your salary is, it's going to be very similar. But rather than a C, let's do an F. Yeah, let's just do an F first. Should have just copy and pasted that line, which I am going to do. I'm going to do an F, and then I'm going to do an F4. F and an F4. Let's see what that does. Okay, what did it do for me? These are the two lines that came out. What's the difference? What does the F stand for? Yeah, float. Okay, it's a floating point number. So display it as a floating point number. By default, it's going to display any digits that are there. So I had 2 digits, so it displayed the 2 digits that are there. When I said F4, that essentially said I want 4 digits of precision. So it would either truncate or round down to 4 digits of precision, okay? Or it would give me an extra 2 zeros there in order to give me 4 digits of precision. Okay? So if I want to display a decimal number, I can use that F. If we wanted just a regular old number, can we get just a regular old number? That's kind of a trick question. We've actually already done a regular old number, right? Yeah. Okay. I am actually kind of curious real quick. If I do it this way, it's not going to truncate it, is it? No. Okay. Yeah, it just shows up as it is. It is what it is. No formatting applied. Yeah. Trick question. We've already done just displaying it as a number. If I wanted it to not have a decimal, can I get it to not have a decimal? It's not a different letter. We're going to have an F. Well, how many decimals are there in a number without a decimal? 0. Can we try that real quick? Oh, look at that. Sure enough, if I put in a 0, now I'm kind of curious. So this is the question that I have. Can I go to a -1? It works, but not at all the way I was hoping that I could like get it to round to the tens position or something like that with a -1. Nope. It's just like your salary is F minus 1. Okay, so that one doesn't work. That one doesn't work. But we can get a float with none. We'll have to use math.round if we want to round it any more or less precisely, I guess we should say. Something along those lines. Okay. We do have a couple of other things here other than our floating point format. Let's do a percent real quick. Your age is, do a 0, colon, and then I'm going to do a capital P. And then instead of int age, I'm going to do int age divided by 100.0. Why did I do 100.0 and not just 100? So it does floating point division. Remember, if you've got an integer on both sides, it's going to do integer division. Doesn't really matter because I gave it a whole number. So 35 divided by 100. But I am 35% old. Only true if I actually live to 100. All right. But yes, formatted as a percent. That was the more important thing there. And I do believe that we can also do like a P1. Yeah, and that'll give you a single digit of precision at the end. So you can choose how many digits you want. And that'll be decimals there. Let's do a weird one. Your age in hexadecimal is 0x, and then I'm going to do a 0 colon x. Put my int age at the end of that. And I got younger. Right. That's pretty neat. On the fly, it did base conversion for us. All I had to do was tell it to represent it in hexadecimal, and it did the conversion. It's pretty cool. So the 0x is my own notation, so that it doesn't just say that I'm 23. So in other words, C# isn't going to put a prefix in front of the number. It's just going to put what the number is in hexadecimal. So I put 0x there so it doesn't look like I'm just 23. So yeah, if you're 15. I was trying to think of an age that one of us could be, but I think we'd have to get to 25. Okay, so the x gives us hexadecimal, P for percent. We've done our floats. Let's play. I've got a couple of other ones jotted down. G is shortest number format. What does shortest number format mean? Okay. So there's the G. So it's essentially truncating, trailing zeros, leading zeros. So it's whatever the shortest number is. E is an exponent. Just copy this salary line down. And rather than an F, let's do an E. There you go. So that's exponential, so 2.7, 505, 50 raised times 10 to the fourth. And I'm guessing we could also do like an E2. Yeah, there we go. So if you do like an E2, you'd get 2 decimals worth of place values, 2 place values for that one. Okay, let's see. Number with commas is an N. So if I paste this one, I do an N. And I'm going to do N6. Not that it's going to be particularly spectacular, but I want it there. So N gives me a number, but it is a comma-separated number. And then I did ask for 6 decimals, so it did give me 6 decimals. Comma-separated, comma-formatted general number. And then the lowercase, so a T is for time. Can I... I'm going to do it. It's dumb, but what's my salary in terms of time? I have no clue what it's going to give me. Yeah, a break. I have a lowercase d for a date and a lowercase t for time. Oh, probably because I'm not giving it anything that it can translate. Okay, let's grab something real quick. Date time. Sometimes with console applications, we do want to do a date and a time. We need to create a date time object. Right? Date time current date equals datetime.now. So this is beyond what we've learned so far, but maybe it's not too abstract. You guys are pretty smart about stuff like this. Just like we're declaring a variable, we're creating an instance of an object, but this is not a type, a data type. It is a object class. Okay? And so we're creating a current date of the type datetime. And datetime.now, the datetime class has what's called a static function, something that it can do even if, static method, something it can do even if it isn't an instance. And we are getting the time now, storing that there. So let's say the time is placeholder colon t. And my placeholder then will be current date. I'm going to copy and paste that line as well and say the date colon D. There we go. And it's a little bit happier about that one there. Here's the question. Okay, so all of these examples that I just gave you, you'll notice that we're using this placeholder rather than the string interpolation style. Do these things work with the string interpolation character? In other words, can I do something like this? But put a $sign at front. Put salary there. Can I do this? Think it'll work? Should have now 2 identical lines. We do have 2 identical lines. Okay. I'll do this one as an F6 just so that it looks different. We can also format string interpolation. Okay, last thing. Then we'll try and do something a little bit more useful. Last thing, alignment and padding. Alignment and padding. I'm going to do a console.WriteLine. On something left aligned. And this is what I'm going to do here. I'm going to put in a vertical pipe, which is the key right underneath the backspace key. We'll hold down Shift, hit that vertical pipe. We're going to have a placeholder. And then -10, we'll just see what that does. A vertical pipe, a 1, and a -10, and a vertical pipe. Oops, curly brace, then a vertical pipe. Okay. Now those vertical pipes there, I should clarify real quick before we get too excited about there being vertical pipes as part of our code. I think those are just there to show us where the text is. It's not actually part of the syntax. So this will work just the same without those being there. All right. Then I'm going to do this. This is going to throw you guys for a loop. Those are supposed to be variable names, aren't they? And I put in 2 string objects. I'm throwing all sorts of curveballs at you. Right aligned, 10 and a 10. And now I'm going to put in str name, age. What did that do? Oops. Start a new window there. Looks absolutely horrible, doesn't it? All right. But notice the alignment and the padding. That's the piece that was really important. Okay. If we wanted to, real quick, we could actually line this up a little bit better. For example, if I put a space there. Okay, notice that'll line up a little bit better if I get that spacing correct. But my name and my age have essentially 10 spaces after them. Right? There's 10 spaces after name. Or I should say there's 10 total spaces. And that's giving us that spacing. Our right aligned, we've got our Stephen and our age kind of spread out there, and that's nice and padded. All right, so if we were trying to make something more tabular, we could certainly do that by using some padding. -10 after, 10 before. All right, that gives us a total amount of space, and whether the text comes first or the space comes first. And then the other curveball that I threw at you guys, we used strings here. We defined strings. What's the difference between defining a literal string and giving a variable that can be represented as a string? All right, there's really not much difference. So these placeholders here, ideally, and if it's text, we might as well just put the text. But if we don't want to, or if we want to have some of this formatting, we can, in fact, put strings in to take the place of placeholders. Okay? Okay, so now we've got a little bit of content for maybe formatting things a little bit nicer. Shall we do something useful? Please, let's do something useful. Let's start a new project. Console application, C#. This is going to be our quadratic program. And now we're actually going to do programming the right way. I'm actually going to make something. All right. Okay. Because this is a console application, normally we would talk through the process of the program in terms of input, processing, output, right? We create our placeholders for input, processing, output. Oftentimes we need to display some content before we can actually get that user input, right? So I'm going to start building my skeleton in comments with a title or welcome message. Initial user options. Then we'll go with our input to get user input, our processing to get our processing, and our output, and then close the program. Though we don't have to do this. Currently, this is handled by VS or Visual Studio. Right, it keeps it open for us until we're done. Other programs won't necessarily do that.
I think if we build it as an executable, we'd have to.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. If we were actually publishing this, we would need to do that. So, and there is a way to get it to stop doing that, but less complexity now. We'll figure that out more later. All right. All right. Before I get into filling in this code, just a little bit of information. This program, actually, let's put this outside of the main function. Let's put it inside of the program class. This program guides users through entering the coefficients. Should have used a multi-line comment. Of a quadratic equation. It then calculates and displays the roots that solve the equation. Bonus. If there is only one root, the output should only show one number. If it is unsolvable or there is no solution, if there is no solution, there is no real solution. All right. There is no real solution. The code should, the output, not the code. The output should say so. Okay. Okay. So in order to get to the point of taking user input, let's add some content down here. Our favorite console.write line, quadratic solver. I'm going to put a new line, and then we'll remind our users ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 is our quadratic equation. Okay. Now I need to get some user input, right? And our initial options, really, there's nowhere for the user to go except for through the 3 pieces of information that I need, right? We might later enter a equation or exit. We might add a couple of options there, but we're not quite there yet. Okay. I need 3 variables. What kinds of variables should I use to store A, B, and C? Integers. Why integers? Typically when we're solving these, right, they're whole number coefficients, right? Integer coefficients. They're not decimals. Can we do quadratic formulas with decimals?
Decimals. You need rational numbers.
Maybe I want them to be irrational numbers. Sorry. Can I do it with rational numbers, Eli?
Yeah, but
Can I use imaginary numbers as coefficients?
yeah,
Ah.
it's not gonna be fun.
Can I use irrational numbers? It's not going to be fun to do by hand for sure. I kind of want to look at what does a parabola look like if the coefficients are a little bit more. I mean, it's not like pi. It's not going to be that much different than if it was 3x squared, if it was pi x squared. That's really not going to change the parabola dramatically. Anyway, yes, okay, too much number theory. We've only got 4 minutes left. I need 3 variables. I'm going to get an int A. Actually, can I put these all on one line? Can I do an int A, int B, B, C? I think I can do that. Yes? Declare multiple empty variables on one line. Okay. Then I need to get some user input for whatever A is equal to. So I'm going to set A equal to, and we need to get some console input. Console dot readline. Now here's a problem. Does the user know what they're putting in? We haven't really told them what to put in place here. So maybe we need a console dot write. Notice that I said dot write rather than dot write line. What's the difference between write and write line?
Write doesn't automatically add a new line.
Exactly right. Okay, this will leave the cursor on the same line as the text. Enter a value for A. And we'll leave the cursor on that same line. Uh-oh, I've got a red squiggly. Why do I have a red squiggly? Implicitly trying to convert. Yeah, we're trying to shove a string. Now, could that string fit inside of an integer? Well, maybe. If it's a single character, it certainly should fit inside of a integer, but it knows that this is not what we're trying to do. If we get something that's weird, we can't put a string inside of an integer. This is a strongly typed language. So I need to convert it to an integer. Now, the only way that we've looked at that so far is to do an int. Right? And that really doesn't work here. This works when we're converting from one number format to another. It does not work when we're taking something that could be non-numeric and trying to put it into a number format. So instead, we're going to use a method called convert dot to int32. And then we'll put inside of that my console.readline. That's a little bit cumbersome. So convert is a library, just like console in math is a library. One of the functions inside of that is the toInt32 function. We're passing it this read line as the parameter. It's going to take that input and it's going to store it inside of A. Okay. I am going to really quickly copy and paste these lines 2 more times so that we can have a B and a C. A B and a C. A B and a C. Okay. Real quick, since we're out of time, we're going to see if we actually got this correct. So I'm going to do a console.writeLine. The equation 0x squared plus 1 x plus 2. Curly braces all the way across. A, B, C. Just want to see if the equation actually comes out the way that I want it to. So if I do a 3, 4, 5, 3x squared plus 4x plus 5. Makes sense.